It's football season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook.
It's time for the old time happy hour. So pick up your step and smile a while.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen, as we're doing a surprise happy hour? We were going to record this normally, but we decided, screw it, let's just see what happens if we do a little unplanned live. And intern Noe, the commissioner, it must be working. We've got 7,700 people waiting on this show to start. First off, we do apologize that you've waited so long for this, but hey, we appreciate it. How you doing, buddy?
Wow, great way to sell the show, buddy.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm the seller of the show. You're the talent. Shut up. Just be pretty. Come see me on the couch later, too.
No, I'm doing good, man. You didn't ask me what I was drinking, but I am doing good, and I'm doing a cocktail today.
Oh,
I'm just doing rum, Captain Morgan Private Stock, with some St. Arnold root beer.
That is so funny because studio wife and I were just talking tonight. She came home needing some libation, so I might have started a little earlier than you, but that's okay. We'll see where the show goes. I might go Mel Gibson, and that just makes me more famous. But anyway, we were just joking about how much you hate Malibu rum. This is a thing for you because I love Malibu rum, and we've actually this weekend we're testing out a new recipe. It's the Sonic Ocean Water, how you make it at home. And so we're gonna Saturday mix that with some vodka and have some rum and have some drinks with it. And it's so crazy that you're drinking rum after me and her were just. And she was like, "What is the deal with Noe not liking Malibu rum?" I'm like, "He just hates anything that's white." I don't know.
Yeah, the white bottle. It always gets me.
Bottle.
Yeah.
But anyway,
how are you, man? And what are you drinking?
I'm doing well. I'm drinking just my normal, some Taka tonight on this Thursday happy hour. So this is what's called a show test. I'm trying to see if my dad follows the show, because if dad follows the show, I went home this weekend. We went and hung out with the folks in East Texas. He will know I stole his hat. And so I'm going to see if he figures this out. I got it for him for Christmas or something like 10 years ago, and I just saw it there. I'm like, I don't have mine. I'm going to take that one and see if he notices. But other than that, I'm doing well, drinking Taka. We're ready to talk the schedule, and breaking news as we're talking the schedule a week later. But this is something I feel like we got to digest a little bit and kind of sit back and look at before we really comment on.
Oh, yeah. This was something that I kind of wanted to do early, but I agree with you because it's 32 teams at 17 weeks. And we'll talk about scheduling later as outside of the current season. There's that proposal for an 18-game season. But I mean, it's a lot of information to digest, and we somehow did it, and we have our opinions on the 2025 NFL schedule.
Yes, and I think we have a lot of really good opinions on that. But first, we're going to gloss over some of the big football news because a lot of things just happened in the last 7 days that affects the NFL, and we'll probably go more in depth on it next happy hour. By the way, we are going to do another happy hour next Thursday as well. We usually go every other week, but again, this wasn't a planned happy hour. I just kind of wanted to see how we would do numbers wise. And 13,000, I think we're doing pretty damn good. So I think the biggest is Jim Irsay, Colts owner, dies in his sleep at the age of 65, and I'm curious, what is your view on him? Because I think the opinion of him kind of changed as he got older and kind of tried to figure out his addiction issue?
I think your dad watches, and
Yeah.
and I think you're in big trouble. uh, I like colorful owners and or just personalities in sports. I think it makes the sport entertaining. It brings in people that are not diehard fans, who are casual fans, or probably just not even fans. They're just like, oh yeah, it's kind of like the Laker fan complex.
Yeah.
You know, when they're good, when they're entertaining, they bring in fans, not really fans of basketball. They just fans of entertainment in general. And I really think he brought that. He was kind of self-destructing though, but I mean, you could see
Yeah.
just from the outpour of love from Pat McAfee, Peyton Manning, he was someone that people loved.
I think at the end of the day, like, whoa, you went dead there for a minute. You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze for a second. It was weird.
Uh,
But I think the biggest thing with him is, you and I joked, he was basically Jerry Jones, but more hardcore. Like, I mean, he had a literal addiction to drugs. He was very open about that and advocated it for it. And, you know, he basically admitted, like, yeah, I still drink too much because of my addiction to drugs. You know, I pick and choose my evil, so to speak. But yeah, I thought he was a fun owner. I thought he made him and Peyton and just that whole era of the Colts, there was a time when the Colts had become that current day Cleveland. They were terrible. Nobody liked them. They were just, I remember people going, okay, are they going to move out of Indianapolis? And they got Peyton Manning. They built around him. And then it became this long journey of him trying to finally get that Super Bowl. And he finally got it, but then he lost one. But it made a small team a big part of the NFL history for the 2000s and late 90s.
and Colts are such a lucky franchise the last, almost 30 years. They get Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. But, the last few years they've been trying to find that quarterback. Uh, yeah, it's good to have a small. It's like with the WNBA, the Indiana Fever, small market team, but they got Kalen Clark, and now they get 17,000 people go into their games, which is unheard of for the WNBA on a consistent basis. So there's something to be said about like teams like the Colts thriving in Indianapolis. Kind of the whole reason why we have the whole salary cap and free agency, just to create that parity. So their teams in Carolina, their teams in I'm trying to think of another small market town, but teams like that have a chance to succeed.
No, I think that's a great way to describe it right there. Just, them in Green Bay are unique. Green Bay, 100,000 people. I know Indianapolis is bigger than that, but I mean, the Colts, the Pacers. I mean, what a hell of a first game in the NFC. I mean, NBA East. I want to say NFC. NBA East, where the Knicks are leading for 90% of the game, and then just collapse. If you like crazy sports, that Eastern Conference Final Game 1, and then the Western Conference Final Game 1 in hockey last night, both of them going on, just crazy ending. It feels like this has been one of those years where there's so many crazy endings.
Yeah, the Stars are trying to give us a heart attack over on the hockey side. Those third period comebacks are unbelievable and fun. And part of me wishes I wasn't a Stars fan because I got to sit through that and get the anxiety of a diehard fan. I mean,
No,
hey,
that's the great thing about them, though, man. If you do the Randy Quaid Major League 2 when they're down and just go, they suck, and then they come back, it just makes everything okay.
Using the reverse psychology. Yeah.
Yeah. I am concerned though that but this happened with the Jets, in one of the games where it looked like they were the better team for 3/4 of it. And yeah, Dallas pulls it out, but I'm still concerned about that 3/4 where they didn't look good. And Edmonton looked faster, and Edmonton looked, people don't want to talk about how good Edmonton's defense has now become and what they did in the last series against the Golden, Knights team. I know they weren't the top 3 in scoring, but they're still the Golden Knight team. And, I don't know how this is going to be a 6 or 7 game series.
Yeah, with the second round, Stuart Skinner, their former starting goalie, got benched, but then the guy that replaced him got hurt, so they brought back Skinner, and then he pitched back-to-back shutouts against the Golden Knights, a very good Vegas Golden Knight team. So, yeah, to your point, the Edmonton Oilers, they're just known for 2 big-time scorers, and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but they got that good D too.
Yeah. All right. Some other quick NFL news. Some of this we'll get way more into next week, like Caleb Williams saying, apparently he was saying before the draft he didn't want to play for the Bears. I don't know why anybody's making that like a big thing. It's obvious, and especially if you read in this book that's coming out, basically the Bears and Matt Eberflus is now the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys, completely different than being a head coach. But like they didn't even like watch game film with Caleb Williams. They didn't and I know some players have come out and said, well, he should have asked. Well, I mean, why should you shouldn't have to ask your boss to tell you what you need to do to succeed at your job. Yes, he should have at the end of the day, but I also can understand why he's probably thinking like, why do I need to ask them? And it just goes to show you just how weird the Bears have been over the last look. I get why they fired him, but man, getting rid of Lovie Smith, just to me tanked this franchise.
Yeah, I guess they haven't been really that consistently good since Lovie Smith left. They had that good couple year or 3-year run with Matt Nagy.
And
Uh,
I think he now looking back, you realize he was way better than what they were. Yeah, he wasn't perfect, but I mean, he was getting them into the playoffs consistently. And your kicker, if your kicker doesn't double dunk, you beat Philadelphia the year after they had made the Super Bowl, and you're in the second round. If I'm not mistaken, you'd have been hosting in the second round. So, yeah, it's a weird time in Chicago, and I really hope that Ben Johnson it brings it in and gets things right, because as good as Detroit looks to be, and I still think Minnesota is going to be way better than what people think. Again, it would be nice to see the Bears be there as well, and the Pack. I mean, that division right now in the NFL, NFC might be the toughest division in the NFC.
yeah, and the Bears won the offseason again this past season, and I really like what they did with the offensive line. I think this will be the year that a Bears quarterback gets 4,000 yards passing. It's never happened in the franchise
Dude,
history.
how
So
crazy is that? And I know, however reason it works, your franchises get identified for certain things, but like, and I get it with Jim McMahon because he just never was healthy. But you had Jay friggin' Cutler there. Like, I mean, that dude. Say what you want. He was, I don't even know how we would describe his era. With what's the? He's Jeff George without being an asshole. Like he was a great quarterback, but not like a great leader. And I don't think he ever tried to lead. And his best moment in life was when he was on the league for 2 episodes, and that's where it is. But how did he not throw for 4,000 yards? That's crazy.
part of it was injuries. Part of it, you know what? That is a good question. I need to go back and look at that. That might be a special show for us because Jay Cutler was a gunslinger. He had a cannon of an arm. So I'm kind of surprised too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Matt Forte, man, those offenses in that era for them were pretty
Brandon
special.
Marshall at wide receiver too. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
they
Hey,
had some talent for sure.
they were inconsistent, but at times they were really just fun to watch. I had Matt Forte a bunch of times in fantasy. He was a fantasy football machine, very underrated fantasy football machine, because he was the running back that did it versatile wise with catching the ball and things like that, and did it for like 5 or 6 years, not one of those 2 or 3 year wonderkins that then fade off. He kept doing well. But anyway, the other big news is the NFL found out that there's 10 pussy franchises, and yes, the Cowboys are one of those. As the Cowboys, as you can see on the list, the Cowboys are one of the teams that voted to ban the tush push. Now it fell to votes short. That tells me though it's probably going to get banned after this year. Especially if one of the teams that vote, like let's say Detroit, and it's in the NFC title game, and it's 28-27, and they push into the end zone to win the game and go to the Super Bowl. I guarantee you next year the Lions are like, you know what? We're gonna change our vote, motherfuckers. But I do think it's funny that of the teams, it's mostly AFC teams, not counting the Eagles, of course, because they're the team. But it's the AFC teams. Like, yeah, we don't really have to see that unless it's a Super Bowl. So go ahead, keep it. Y'all doing good.
Yeah, especially the AFC East, represented by 3 of the teams. Yeah, hey, you and I both agree with this. We're both diehard Cowboy fans, but if a team, I don't even if it's the Eagles, if they can run a legal play that good, I'm not gonna just ban it because I can't stop it. Just do better, get better. And that's they're all 22 of those teams, really 21, because Jerry Jerry just hates the Eagles, which I can relate to. So
I
I'm
mean,
okay with him.
the whole NFC East voted against it, and I get that. You're playing those guys two games a year, and the tush push has, even though it wasn't perfect last year, but the tush push has won them games inside the conference. I mean, inside the division. So I get that. Now I will say this: the one thing I heard was, okay, then just allow the defensive players to push defensive players into the pile, because you can't do that now.
Yeah.
I could see that as being okay. That's a fair, trade off. Okay, if they can push, we can push too, and because that's all they're doing. And this is nothing against Jalen Hurts, or everybody thought at first it was Kelsey that did it, but I mean they did it this year with a different center. It's just literally the fact that once the line gets stale, somebody comes and pushes Jalen Hurts, and if it's less than a yard, you're going to get that 9 times out of 10. And so I wouldn't have an issue with them just saying, okay, let's allow the defense to push back. But other than that, man, if you can't stop the play, if every team was doing it with success, I would understand it. Then it's like, okay, this is obviously an unstoppable play, but other teams have tried it and have not been able to do it.
And I love how the world just makes you laugh sometimes, because the vote was 22-10 to ban the play, and this was for the request to ban the play came from the Green Bay Packers, who the Eagles beat in the divisional or the wild card round last season, 22-10. So I kind of love that. Even though I hate the Eagles, I do love the karma. I just stop being a little bit, play better, do better. And we're gonna go to the other one if you want to segue to the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, the Lions had floated out that they were wanting to get rid of division winners being higher seeded to go straight record. They pulled it. Apparently, they didn't have any support behind it. And look,
I'm gonna go ahead and just say what I want to say about it first. I'll let you.
No,
This reminds me of what happened with the NBA, because there was a few years there where Denver was making the playoffs. They were a 3 seed, but they only won 43, 44 games.
They were in a really bad division.
Yeah. So, and I hate that NBA did that. So right now you have a team like the Orlando Magic who won, I forgot what division they are in the NBA, but they won that, but they had to do the play-in game because they had the 7 seed, because they were, I think, 41 and 41. But it was just such a weak division that they won. I'd rather them just be third. You need to either do that or get away, or just get rid of the division format, because what's the point of having divisions if it doesn't really matter for playoffs? Because all 4 of your teams in the division could win 35 games or less and not make the playoffs. So what was the whole point? Oh, we won the division. Are you in the playoffs? No, but we won the division.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think the thing that really keeps football locked in like that is, if you got rid of divisions and you try to go round robin, you're going to then have it where there'll be many, many years where the 2 or 3 best teams don't ever play each other till the playoffs, which that's perfectly fine, I guess. But divisions need to mean something. The NFC East needs to mean something. And also, for the record, Noe, to be fair, most of the time the division winners are going to be a 10-win team, an 11-win team. Yeah, there's going to be the years like Seattle, and they're hosting when they have a losing record. But guess what? That created one of the greatest football moments in history, with Marshawn Lynch going off and them beating the Saints, who were supposed to be way better, and all that made it so fun. So I don't have an issue with every few years one division winner might be the 3 seed and they're 8-8, or now 9-8. I'm fine with that. It should stay that way.
It doesn't happen every year, so it's fine. It's cyclical. Now look at the Denver Nuggets. Now switching back to basketball, one of the top teams in the league. Yep. Yeah, their division at one point in time in the past was not that great, but now it is. So it's just cyclical. Next, like 4 years ago, it was the NFC East.
Yep.
It'll be another division in the future. It's always going to happen, and that's fine. I just hate when teams like the Lions introduce these proposals only because they lost. They couldn't show up. You know, if you could stop Washington in the divisional round, this would not have been a proposal.
But you're going to be playing in the divisional round no matter what. Even if you were the number 2 seed, you're still playing. It's not like it changed them like, oh, if they would have just, if we wouldn't have gone with records, they would have been they were hosting, Washington and lost to them. I'm 100% like you. I think it's one of those short-sighted reactions, and I really am glad they pulled it, and I hope it stays. You just got to have divisions. It's the whole thing when people say, well, man, don't you wish Dallas was in a more regional? No, they've been in the NFC East. It worked. It helped create them because you were playing in major media markets, but also it created some of the best rivalries that you'll ever see in football.
Yeah, and if you change it now, which is, I mean, I would hate it, but then you would have to create all new rivalries. It would be like the Chiefs, everybody that lives close to Dallas, Chiefs, the Saints, maybe the Cardinals. I don't know how they would do the split out, but it would be something like that.
It wouldn't be terrible. I mean, again, we would adjust. Let's say that 100%. If they ever did actually do that, we would adjust. And it would be fun to play the Texans twice, the Saints twice, the Falcons twice. Well, if you went 4 teams, that could be your Southern NFC South, new NFC South division. But again, that's not the point. But let us talk about what now is what we're here for. Live. It's the schedule reveal 1 week late. If you didn't know this already, I apologize for you for being out of the news, but let's go ahead and talk about it. What is the first thing you think of when you look at the Dallas Cowboys 2025 schedule?
November and December are going to really, really suck.
But September might suck too.
Yeah, the September might suck too. I mean, we don't know how good the Bears are going to be, but the Eagles and Packers, the Giants have 3 really good pass rushers. So
doesn't it feel like it's time for Giants to beat Dallas at least once this year? That they haven't beat them, I think, in 8 matchups now or something like that.
Yeah, I think since Dak's rookie year.
Yeah. Oh, has it been that long since they beat Dallas? Oh,
I almost want to say that because I remember the Giants swept the Cowboys that year. Those are 2
was that weird year where Dallas beat everybody but couldn't beat the Giants. But then I just didn't know if there was another year when Dak was hurt that maybe they snuck a win. But I think you're right. But anyway, it feels like it's time.
2020. When Dak was hurt, the season finale, I remember now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So still, though, 5 years. And basically, Dallas has won 12 out of the last 16 matchups or something crazy like that. And it just feels like it's finally going to happen. I will say this, though. I'm not as like everybody else. I think Dallas has just as good a chance to walk in on Thursday night in Philly and win that because that tends to happen in these rivalry games, and this is Philly's big moment and everything like that. I'm more worried about the Packers and the Commanders and Denver and Colorado. I mean Colorado and Arizona. I mean, I think Dallas is a better team than Arizona, but Dallas has not beat Arizona much lately. And Kyler Murray has never lost at AT&T Stadium as a Cardinal or high school football.
Or college, Oklahoma.
That's right, because
the conference championship, yeah.
Yeah, he lost to Texas in the Cotton Bowl on the Red River. But anyway, dude, and you never know with these. You never know who are some of these teams that are supposed to be good will end up not being as good. Some of these teams that are supposed to be bad will end up not being as bad. But I will say this, your list of the toughest schedules didn't list it, but I legitimately think Dallas has one of the toughest schedules this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I just purposely didn't include them just because of bias and because of the show. But yeah. Objectively speaking, I mean, all these teams are going to be either really good or much better than they were last season. Like Carolina, I think another year with Canales and Bryce Young, I think that's a good coach-quarterback duo now. And I think Bryce Young is going to take a big step forward in year 3. So I would even say Carolina would be a team we could just overlook. And of course, the Raiders be the first time Cowboys have gone to Vegas. It'll be a Monday night game with Ashton Genty and that improved offensive line. I think the Raiders will be very game.
I know a lot of people have tried to point to, Dallas is on more Thursday night games. That means they're losing their luster. I mean, 2 of them are holidays. Basically.
Yeah, Christmas and Thanksgiving.
And then the other one is the opening of the NFL season. And I know some people are like, well, yeah, but we'd rather have Philly, Detroit, or Philly, Washington, or whatever. Or Philly. The only other one I thought would be like Philly, Kansas City. I mean, I still am a big believer. I think the NFL, the one thing they should do, because they have these 1 games they can kind of float around. That's why Dallas, they'll play like this year, they're playing the AFC West. for their games, but then they still can play a team like the Jets. You alternate one game. Outside of that, I think every Thursday opening night should be the rematch of the Super Bowl, period. I think that would be the funnest way to do it. But if they're not going to do that, why would they not go Dallas? And yes, I know we can all talk about, oh, well, last year they were 7-10 and all that. But, well, now knowing, to be fair, if the Dallas Cowboys, after this first month of the season, are sitting at 4-2, they're going to be everybody's been talking about them. Is the Cowboys real this time? Is this the Cowboys create that conversation, whether you like them or not? In fact, for those of you that hate them, it's usually your fault because y'all want to watch them to lose. So to me, it made total sense. I hate Dallas having to play the first two games against divisional opponents. You know my belief on that. I don't think the divisional opponents should be played until October. I really wish they would get behind that.
Yeah, it has that kind of like the high school and college method where you kind of play your non-conference or non-conference games the first few weeks, and then you get into conference play. Basically the same situation here. So you're thinking like, oh yeah, play the AFC West maybe to start the season, or a couple of the other NFC teams that are not in the East, and then get into divisional play around October, and then finish off with your division in December, January.
One of the things I don't like is I feel like, and I love them playing at Christmas and Thanksgiving. I do love that part. I don't care. I don't care if they lose. It's still just fun that's one of the things on a fun day already that you're looking forward to. But man, to me, what makes the schedule so tough in November and December is how many short days. Look how many games they play between November 17th and December 25th.
They're doing that thing the NFL loves to do with the Cowboys. Almost every year, the Cowboys play on Thursday on Thanksgiving, then they want them to play the next Thursday. So that's one of the Thursday games. It's just because I don't know why they didn't do it last year, but most of the years they make the Cowboys play the following Thursday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and they don't make Detroit, and that's been one of the issues with they made that big thing a few years ago, like, oh, the Thanksgiving game guys aren't going to get that benefit of 10 days until 7 days later, and that's the other crazy thing. Look how many games they play between November 17th and December 25th, and there's a 10-day layoff between Thursday, December 4th and Sunday, December 14th. Then they've got to do a short week between December 21st and 25th. And then the Giant game is a TBD. Now, they normally put all the TBDs on the last week of Sunday, mainly in at noon. So unless Dallas and the Giants get kicked to a Sunday night game because, both of them or one of them is win and you're in, or win and seeding, you're going to get another situation where basically you have another short week. And I get it, but man, I just think that legitimately is unfair.
Yeah, that's unfair. I mean, like I told you, the only thing I really like about this schedule is there's only a couple of actually cold weather games.
Yeah.
There's a Bronco game close to Halloween, but I don't really count that one. It'll probably be a little chilly, but it won't be
Dallas hasn't beat Broncos in what, 20 years or something like that?
Well, it's been a while.
I mean, it's been a long while. It's been weird games, and games where neither team were good, or games where both of them were good. But yeah, Dallas, that's one of those things that, like, Dallas won like the first 8 or 9 in a row against them, including the Super Bowl, and then they just haven't been able to beat them since then. All right, let's go over and look now. And we'll get more in depth on like our favorite game stuff here in a minute. But let's go first and look at the Houston Texans and who they've got. And to be honest, I think this is a pretty solid schedule for them. They've got some.
Did you almost want to say to be fair, but you changed it to be honest?
No, because I didn't feel like it was a to be fair. I know my two. I guess I'm gonna have to go a to be honest, but I think this is a really solid schedule. They don't have any what I would call oh my God stretch. I mean, depending on what San Francisco is and the Bucks, that September 15th through November 16th could be interesting. You got the Chiefs and the Chargers back-to-back weeks, and the that's pregame. I mean preseason. I just don't really see them having like a terrible schedule this year. This is a very winnable schedule for them.
Yeah, I mean there'll be a couple of tough games. Seahawks probably will be tough. They improve their offensive line. Kansas City is going to be really tough as usual. It's a December game at Arrowhead, so it'll be weather will be a factor. 49ers, I think they're gonna be very improved. You know, they have a wide receiver that didn't get shot this offseason, so I know we still got 3 more months,
It's,
but you know, there is hope there.
I know they have what's considered an easier schedule, but I think the we'll of course get into that when we get close to the season. I think the Niners have taken a step towards rebuilding.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they did get rid of a lot of players, but the to me, the biggest acquisition is getting Robert Saleh back as defensive coordinator. I think he's
I
gonna,
think it's big.
along with all the draft picks they had, I think he's gonna really turn that team around on that side of the ball, and that should really alleviate some pressure off of Brock Purdy, who they just paid a pretty good chunk of money to, 53 and a half a year. So good for
Okay.
him.
I'm going to wrap that up into this real talk. Okay. We'll get back into the Houston schedule stuff here in a little bit.
Okay.
You and I have defended all the time as a player, get what you can. But it goes to show that Dak is still the highest paid quarterback after Josh Allen has redone his deal. Now, after this deal is redone, Dak, seriously, did you have to be 60 million and not 55? And people go, well, that's only 5 million. Yes, but in NFL cap manufacturing, 5 million is huge. 5 million is the difference in maybe, and that's just that's where that you know, if you're going to be the guy that takes the most money and you have that right, you also have to take the flack if your team isn't talented enough in other spots because they're having to make salary cap decisions.
Yeah, and we talked about it during the draft. If you're gonna pay this quarterback all this money, like Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, then you got to protect them, because if they get hurt, you know, Dak has been out for the season a couple times lately. It's really this decade, and Tua's out almost every year. What's the point of paying them all this money if you can't protect them? So
That's a good point.
and they also and also, to be fair,
It's a bit fair.
if you accept that money, you need to accept the responsibility.
Fair. I'm gonna play that. That button's gonna die.
If you accept the money, you have to accept the responsibility. To your point, I really think that all of them need to understand that, and I hope they do, and I hope their close circle, their environment, kind of reinforces that belief, because some of these players can be a little delusional, to be honest with you. And I don't really get it, and it just demonstrative and detrimental to team success.
No, I totally agree with that. And again, I'm also 100% saying that I'm also part of the get what, get yours, but you also have to take, you also have to take responsibility when you get yours. And you can't be like, well, it's not my job now to build the roster. That's the GM. Well, yeah, but you're hamstringing them also. You can be the highest paid. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we don't work in that competitive field. We're competitive, but you and I have talked about before. I am nowhere. Maybe it's I'm a simp. I'm a cuck. I lack testosterone T. I'm just not competitive like I used to be. I used to be really fiercely competitive. Now I'm not. I just don't understand this need. I have to be the highest paid. Just whatever, dude. You're making generational money.
Which, I mean, hey, if that's your whole goal, is to make the most money you
That's
can,
fine.
if you attach value to yourself by making the most out of position, good for you. But don't get mad when people crap on you when your team doesn't win, because it will be your fault.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. All right. We're going to take a quick break here with a sponsor from Billy Barbecue, and when we come back, we're going to break down the games that we're most looking forward to for the NFL, for the Cowboys, and for the Texans. And we're doing it all right here on OutDrank The Coverage.
Let's barbecue.
All right, that is Billy Barbecue. You can find them online at billybarbecue.com. You can also go to their Amazon page. And for somebody that loves the camp as much as I do, I think it is so awesome that you can have a grill that you can basically plant over your fire and you can cook all the greatest things you want to cook from home and have your gourmet meals out there. It doesn't always have to be like hot dogs and s'mores and all that fun stuff. So please check them out. We appreciate them being a sponsor. All right, let's get into this as we begin the second half of the OutDrank the Coverage. Now, we don't pay attention to the topic stuff. That's just our show notes. Let's go to your top 5 non-NFC East Cowboy games. And I do appreciate this. I didn't even think about giving you a reason why I was picking this game. And I like how you created some of my reasons. Some of them are not 100% right, but we're going to have fun with that. Let's talk about yours first. Of course, I think everybody for the Cowboys, again, this is non-NFC East. We play them every year. I think the biggest one everybody's looking forward to is Chiefs. It's Thanksgiving Day. That's going to be a game that pulls in 35 million people watching.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a lot of Texas or people from Texas that love Patrick Mahomes.
And you got to remember, Kansas City came from Dallas. There is still pretty good fan bases. There's a sports bar in Plano right next to you that's called Arrowhead Sports Bar. And they are old. It started because they were old school Dallas Texans fans, and they transferred theirs to Kansas City when they moved up.
Yep. The old Dallas Texans. They started here, I think, in 1950. They didn't last that
helmets.
One of the best helmets. They didn't last that long. But yeah, the original Dallas franchise, the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes' first game in Texas or in Cowboy Stadium or Arlington, AT&T. I never remember the name of the
Cowboy Stadium is the way it's always going to
be. In 2017, the Chiefs were here last, and Alex Smith was the quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes didn't play in that game. He was a rookie that year.
That was the game Dallas won, but the Chiefs at halftime basically did a screen pass Hail Mary that scored them a touchdown.
Tyreek Hill in his second season. So
Remember
he was, he was the old cheetah. And I was, we knew each other at this point, and you and I were both pretty pissed about that play, but it ended up working out for the Cowboys. They had a big second half rally, and they took care of business against the Chiefs.
And that was their last Thanksgiving win until the last couple of years, where they've kind of gotten fortunate that they've had the Giants and such to be their, who they're playing on. They were, and this is going to be a tough one as well. I think we're going to see a Chief team this year that's closer to what they were 2 and 3 years ago, going down the field and being explosive. And then your second game, and by the way, some of our games are the same. Your second game is the Raiders. I didn't put the Raiders just simply because I'm not buying in yet to the Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, all that. I think it's going to work long term, but I still think this is going to be a really, really bumpy year for them. But I do love the fact they're finally getting to go to Vegas and everything.
Yeah, and that's the main reason why I had him on the list. It's the first game will be in Vegas. It's on Monday Night Football. And I'm curious to see what Pete Carroll does with this Vegas Raider team. I like Ashton Genty. I like Geno Smith, if I'm being honest. So, and I think their offensive line is better than the Seattle Seahawks offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think the Raiders are going to be terrible this year by any stretch. I just think, and they again, Dallas. This is one of those weird years where I could make a case. Like I think you and I both realized last year, shit needs to go completely right, and it didn't. I don't know, man. I can see this year being a lot like last year, but I can also see this year being what Dallas has done a really good job since 2014. And whenever they've missed the playoffs, they always bounce back and make the playoffs the next year.
And part of it's the schedule, because typically now when we talk about toughest schedules and the Giants, I'm going to already contradict myself, but typically a team that doesn't do well the prior season gets an easier, more favorable schedule. But because of who the NFC East plays on the AFC side this season, the NFC East has a much tougher schedule this season.
Well, and people don't understand that really only affects basically like 2 or 3 games a year now. It's usually who you play over in the AFC that's not part of your division. Like this year, Dallas finished 3rd. They play the Jets, who finished 3rd. It's like that. It used to be like 5 or 6 games. That used to mean a lot more. Like, I mean, that's why you used to see, like, if you go look in the 90s and the 2000s, even the 80s, you would see there was so many, at the time, 4 and 12, 5 and 11, bounce back to 10 and 6. And it wasn't that, I mean, they did improve, but they also improved because they were getting to play the last place teams. Heck, there was a year where Dallas got to play Tampa Bay twice back in 88, or was it 89? Oh no, it was 90. It was 90. And so what they did was you were or 91. It was you were last place the year before, and there was one extra matchup because back then, remember, the divisions were uneven.
Yeah.
So Dallas got to play Tampa at home and on the road like a division game almost.
Yeah, and it was pretty close together too, like within a 2 or 3 week period.
Yeah, and that was one of the games where you could actually see what like Michael Irvin was going to become, and they threw it like in Tampa. They threw a touchdown late to win the game. Anyway, we digress. Your third game, and it's one that's so I have the Chiefs and the Cardinals. You have the Cardinals. You were right on mine. It was the same thing. Like, well, again, the Cardinals and the Broncos and the Packers are teams that Dallas is just can't beat lately. And again, the Kyler Murray thing, but also I think the Cardinals are one of those teams that by November 3rd, man, I could see them being what people think they could be and being a top team in the West, but I could also see them being headed for another year.
Yeah, I mean, last season they were 6-4 in first place in the NFC West going into the bye, and then just kind of cratered. I still don't know what happened with that team, but they did improve, and I think they're going to take another step forward. What I'm thinking is what happened is they had a lot of draft picks in 2024 and 2024, and a lot of those guys are starting to get experience. So I think this year might be the year that they might surprise a lot of people, not because of any big moves they made in the offseason, like Sweat getting him from the Eagles, but it'll be more to do with the players they drafted maturing into year 2 and 3 of their career.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And then, of course, the Lions, Thursday Night Football, December 4th. This will be, the Lions and the Cowboys have been tied together for the last 20 years, oddly in weird ways. It's now Dallas trying to prove to the Lions they're as good as the Lions compared to where it was 2 years ago when it was on a Thursday night, of course, and the famous did he call out to the ref and all that, where the Lions were trying to prove to Dallas they were belonged with Dallas. And the Lions are a fun watch. I can talk about that. I think Dan Campbell and Mike Vrabel are starting to, oddly enough, maybe have the same type of career coaching wise, but you cannot deny that the Lions are not a fun watch right now.
Yeah, and especially when they're healthy on the defensive side, they go from fun to unbeatable. I love the 2 running back duo they got.
Oh yeah,
was it Sonic and Knuckles combo there?
Yep.
But yeah, I love the receivers. I'm glad Jared Goff got to a city that really appreciates him. And
but he's still also kind of proving everybody right so far.
No, I mean, that's a tough one because I could give you a good reason why they lost to the 49ers in 23 and to Washington last season.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with you. Now, the San Francisco one was more the Lions had the moment and they just didn't seize it. And Washington, the Lions defense gave up a lot, but Goff was not good early. He kind of had one of those Dak style games in the playoffs where he starts slow and then he gets them almost out of the hole, but their defense just couldn't get that 1 or 2 stops late in that third and fourth quarter.
Maybe that's why I'm sympathetic to him.
I like Goff.
Well, because it's a lot of pressure because at that point the Lions defense was frail and braille. They just could not stop anything because they had so many injuries, and Washington was just going up and down. You and I both were watching that game and knew that the Washington could score on every drive and they were not going to be stopped. They could have went, it could have been 4th and 13. And I would have bet $100 they would have converted.
Oh no, I 100% agree with that. All right. And then your last game, I also have on my list, the Broncos. First off, again, Dallas, just for whatever reason, hasn't been able to. I think it's been like 10 games, hasn't been able to beat the Broncos. But as you and I always talk about, I'm a Bronco fan by proxy. I love all the AFC West teams. It was just when I was growing up, you got the Cowboy. I told you before, I grew up especially in the late 80s, early 90s, I grew up in this perfect area where we had a Shreveport station that showed the Saints, an East Texas station that showed the Cowboys, and then the NBC that showed the Oilers in the early game, and they would always show the AFC West game. And, it was always the Raiders. That's one. If you look at my list, I only didn't include the Raiders because, again, I knew you probably would anyway. But, I mean, I have the Broncos and the Chargers and the Chiefs because I just love AFC West football.
I almost want to say it was the last Cowboy win against the Broncos might have been 95.
I think it was.
I remember watching that game. I remember 98, they lost.
98 was the year when the Dallas had a great offense, terrible defense. They scored on the Broncos at will, kind of reminiscent of 2013. They scored on the Broncos at will early, but then the Broncos were just humming at that point. I really wish Elway wouldn't have retired. I wanted one more year with Elway because I think they could have made it to that third Super Bowl in a row.
And them and the Rams in the Super Bowl would have been very interesting.
Even 99-95. There'd be more offense in this game than there is in basketball right now. All right, so let's now go to our top 5 non-Cowboy games.
Well, you have 2 other teams.
Oh yeah, okay. Packers. That's obvious. Well, and the Chargers. I said, the Chargers and the Cowboys have played a lot lately. Not only did they play the last time we had the division matchups, they also played in between as the random team you play every other 4 years, and then they're back in. So they've played 3 times in 4 years now.
Yeah, I think we did a show in the studio. It was a Monday night game. I think it was one of the
2 Charger games.
I think it was there was a clip of you and me like basically doing this, like holding. It looks like we're holding each other's hands.
That was the field goal game 2 years or 3 years ago. They beat them in Chargers in, I don't know if it was overtime.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was overtime. And then there was the other one too. It was 2021 or 2022 was that weird game where like DeMarcus Lawrence got a touchdown like on the second play of the game. He scooped and scored a touchdown. And it was that weird year where Dallas was just getting out on everybody like 21-0.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're old.
Yeah. Well. First of all, we're about a month away from you being for real old.
Shut the.
Hey, I can't wait. We're gonna celebrate together. That'll be fun, man.
Yeah, we're gonna hold each other in our arms like we did that night, and probably end up watching a bunch of Cowboy YouTube videos. That's what we do. All right, let's go to our non-Cowboy, or let's go to our Texans. Where is the Texans? Is it on the other page? Hang on.
It's after your top 5 non-Cowboy games. So yeah, it's probably on the other page.
Yeah. We did it as a group. All right. So here's our Texans game, the top 5, and then we'll go back to the non-Cowboy Texans game. Rams early road test. And the Rams are a team that if you're going to play them, you kind of want to play them early because they tend to be 3-5 and then find their stroke and get rolling. Bills week 12. I mean, this is the one thing I can say about the Texans. I said earlier that I like their schedule, but you're going to see, I think, 4 of the top AFC teams in this season with the Bills, the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Ravens.
Yeah, I think the best teams are not going to actually be 14-3 or 13-4. I see a lot of really good AFC teams that are going to just beat each other up. I don't see someone like the Chiefs going 15-2 this season. And I can see the Broncos winning the AFC West. I know we're not making predictions on division winners. I mean, it's May. I'd rather make that in August when I have a clearer picture. But
yeah,
they're just going to beat each other. It'll be like the 2021 AFC, where the number 1 seed was 12-5, and there was a bunch of 11-6 and 10-7 teams.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think the NFC is going to be like that again this year as well. I think you're finally getting into that true parity that the NFL wanted. I think the Patriots are going to always be that just weird. They found everything in the bottle at the right time and rode it for 15 years. I don't think we're going to see that happen as much. And I know people say, well, the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs have already lost 2 Super Bowls. I mean, and as great as they are, and again, I do appreciate that we don't really hold Super Bowl losses over teams like we used to. That was such a weird thing for so long that so many players that said they lost the Super Bowl were like, I would rather have not made the playoffs. And that shouldn't be that way. Yeah, you want to win, but you should also be happy that, hey, we made it to the friggin', second round or the Super Bowl, and we came up just short. But it's for so long, it wasn't like that. So I am glad that we're getting back into that. But yeah, I think parity is just reigning all over the NFL right now. All right, so top 5 non-Cowboy games. You and I kind of tried to predict what you would say, so I wouldn't just repeat them. And we actually did a pretty damn good job. You've got number 1, Eagles and Chiefs, week 2, Super Bowl rematch. Again, I know they do the whole, well, y'all were in Philly the last time, but just flip that and let this be the first game of the year.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think the last Super Bowl rematch was the 2016 season when Carolina went to Denver. Now, both teams
Wasn't
ended up.
that like opening day too?
Yeah, it was the first week of the season. It was an opening game. Yeah,
Was it Thursday night game or just opening?
I think it was Thursday night actually. Yeah,
Well, yeah, that's the way it should be. That's fun. Like you've got these teams. I know there's always going to be changes, but you've got these teams that just played each other. They just heartbreaking and heartwarming and all that. Let them restart in week 1 and make that be the Thursday night game.
and especially with the 17th game, you can make this happen every year. But this also kind of falls into perfect harmony because this is the once every 4 years where the NFC East plays the AFC West. So
West,
the
yeah.
Eagles were going to play the Chiefs no matter what.
Yep.
And yeah, I would have been fine with making that week 1 game. But I think bring the Cowboys, and the Chiefs are a rating magnet. They're the number 1 team as far as popularity right now. But the Cowboys always bring in ratings,
Yeah,
and
it's still the Cowboys and Eagles. That's still a hell of a rivalry. And I
that
love how
I'm saying like that, and then the pettiness of having
yes,
the Cowboys in Philadelphia while Philadelphia raises the banner. They'll probably bring out the trophy just to rub it in.
they need to do it all. Like, dude, this is your chance. Like, do it, enjoy it. You and I, we hate the Eagles, but like, we've always talked about the draft we went to, and there was Eagle fans, and we had such a good time with them, just talking about players and all that. But dude, you win the championship, you earn the right to act like the asshole. Now, if you get beat that night, that just makes it more enjoyable. But it's also still Dallas and the Eagles. And I love how quick the media, and I know technically we're the media too, but how quick the media will pump Dallas up when they're good and then bury them when they're bad. Like people were like, well, why are they playing the Eagles? They haven't beat them. Yeah, they got swept for the first time in like what? Forever. I mean, the Cowboys and the Eagles they go back and forth now. I think it's still going to be a good game. But anyway, your second one is another Chief one and another NFL East one. And I think you're right. The Chiefs and the Commanders. Look, when the NFC West and the AFC West and the NFC East meet, there's usually some great games that oddly are historically awesome.
Excuse me. Yeah, I perfectly agree with you on there, and I think this is going to be a matchup we look at 10 years from now, like, oh, that's the best quarterback 10 years ago, and that's the best quarterback for the future. And I really think Jaden Daniels versus Patrick Mahomes is going to be one of those type of matchups. I'm really curious to see how this works out. Only downside I'd see is it's so early in the season, so it could be a blowout, and oh no, wait, I take that back. It's not. It's week 8. For
Yeah,
some
that's
reason,
still
I was
early.
thinking it's like
I
week
mean,
3 or 4. But
in an 18-week season, that's still pretty early.
it's early, but it's enough where the team can get a feel for like the new players that just come in. So I think both teams will be getting to the point where they're in season mode, they're in season shape. And I think this might be the best version of each team by this point, hopefully, for the viewing fans' sake.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that game a lot.
All right, and then your game 3 is Eagles at Bills. I mean, it speaks for itself. First off, it's 12:28, so it could be snow. Both of these teams play well in the cold. I'm hoping that this is what we think it will be, but then you also have the chance where one of these teams might already have the number 1 seed and they're just sitting everybody, and that's always the danger of the week 17, week 18 games. But still, I think this is going to be an awesome game. And the Eagles, I beg both teams, Buffalo, wear your reds. Eagles, wear your Kelly green with the white, all white with the silver pants. Please wear that, and everything will be good.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we hate the Eagles, we still love the Kelly green look. And if it's snowing,
Keep that one up right there at all times. It'll always be the Kelly green because that is legitimately top 3 prettiest uniform in the NFL.
Yeah, it's just perfect, and like the colors work well together. I love it. Still hate the team.
Oh yeah, screw it, Philly. But we've always said this. Even when if the Commandos would just get rid of that all black look, they still have a pretty look, and it's just. I mean, it's almost the same. It's just a little darker. But I've always said the NFC East has such a great, unique look of all the jerseys that, as you and I have this created the uniform game. It's not about how pretty the uniforms are as much as how pretty they look together. And I love Washington and New York, or New York and Washington at noon when that in November when the sun's just right down on them. I love the Eagles in Dallas on a night game. There's just something about the way that looks. So anyway, so your next big game, Lions and Bengals, they might combine for 100 points. I mean, the Bengals might give up 100 points a game this year and still be 9-8.
Oh yeah, their offense is going to be.
Shit, they're the Chargers. They are the 80s and 70s Chargers. Wow. To be fair though, hang on. Well, now, Noe, to be fair, the Chargers defense was not terrible in the regular season. They just were bad when it mattered in the playoffs. But yeah, the Bengals are literally doing the whole, we're supposed to be in an offensive era, so we're just going to score 80 points a game and hope we win.
Yeah, and that might work to get to a 500 record. You might sink into the playoffs, but the Bengals have some issues on defensive side. They need to sign Hendrickson, but I think that ship has sailed. They need to just work out a trade, get something back in return.
Not failed. Everybody's saying all the mean things, but dude, think you lived it. I know you were just getting into the team, but what Emmitt Smith and the Cowboys were saying in 1993 to each other through the press, you'd have thought, oh, there's no way this will ever work. If they offer him enough money, or if he realizes he doesn't have a lot of options, and I still contend he'll be back with Cincinnati this year.
There's a more recent reference. Chris Jones a couple years ago, he sat out the first game for the Chiefs. They lost the season opening game to the Lions at home, and then they immediately signed Chris Jones to play the next week.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I do think he eventually will sign it. But I mean, he's great, but that ain't going to save you for when you don't have anybody else around him that's good. And then your last one, and you're right, the Ravens and the Chiefs, week 4, never a dull game. It's a fun clash of styles and what they do, but they actually all do the same thing really well. I do feel like the clock is officially now on the Bills and the Ravens. Like, y'all got to do something soon, or you're going to have to start having some really tough discussions. And the Bills have nobody's talked about this. You know, the Bills a couple years ago went all in. They got Von Miller. They signed everybody. And then the last couple years, they've kind of went the Dallas approach of, we'll build through midline signings. And I still think that's a really good value thing. But the problem is when Philadelphia does what they do, it does make you wonder, well, crap, should we go back all in? So, but anyway, Ravens and Chiefs, that'll be a good one. All right, let's go for mine. I love what you said for Chargers and Raiders. Again, Chargers and Raiders for me is because I want to see what Pete Carroll and Geno Smith and Ashton Genty against a Chargers team that I still don't know how to feel about last year. Like, everything they did was right until the playoff game. But I mean, again, that's been the Chargers for the last 10 years. They either are the best, or really could say 20 years. They're the best team that doesn't make the playoffs, or it feels like they underperform in the playoffs.
Yeah, it was just the one really bad game for Justin Herbert. You know, like 5 interceptions, I believe it.
And that was their first true, really bad game in a big moment. You know, people forget a couple of years ago, and I've said that I don't think that at the end of the day, Harbaugh is going to want him as his quarterback just because of what Harbaugh wants. But, you know, people need to remember that the year that got Staley fired, they didn't make the playoffs, they did make the playoffs, but got beat in that Jacksonville game. But how many fourth downs in the last 6 weeks that they converted when the backs were against the wall? And that was all Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Justin Herbert giveth and Justin Herbert taketh last season.
Does it feel like he's a guy that could end up going somewhere else eventually? And
you've been talking about that ever since Harbaugh got there.
I don't think it's weird. I know Harbaugh's a quarterback, but I don't think Harbaugh likes gunslingers. I really don't. I think Harbaugh likes gritty, gutty quarterbacks. Look at all of his quarterbacks, whether they be in pro, whether they be in college, all the way back to when he was at, I can't remember where he was before Stanford, east, west, left, south coded the state.
San Diego.
Oh yeah, okay, wasn't that?
It was
I like my name better, but
okay.
but yeah,
We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
oh yeah, he was with the goals. But you know, he likes the scrappy, tough, throws for 180, runs for 60 quarterback. And you even saw that earlier this last year, because remember how much Herbert was running? He had like 4 rushing touchdowns in the first 5 games. Yeah. And then he was like, wait a minute, that's not what I do, son. Let me do my thing. I don't know. I just feel like he'll eventually be traded. Dallas.
Well, I mean, because the way that he designed this team the last 2 years, especially now, you know, you got Joe Alt last season. He got Mekhi Becton in free agency from the Eagles to play right guard. And then he also has Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Rashawn Slater. That's an elite offensive line. And then they got Najee Harris to spell Omarion Hampton. And they also have Hassan Haskins as a third running back.
Yeah.
And then they got Ladd McConkey, Mike Williams, Quinn Johnson. This is a pretty well-rounded team as offensively now. He quickly turned this team into – it may not have a number 1 receiver, but he has a lot of 2s and 3s. He's just a very solid.
Think McConkey's the number 1?
I'd never really want to assign that to rookies. There's exceptions, like
you mean to whites?
just rookies. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there, so I can't just discount what you said.
No, look, I say this in 1,000% love him. He will be one of the guys I'm drafting a lot in the 47 leagues I'll be in. But he's more of a Hunter Renfrow. You know, he is more of the guy that gets, you know, the Edelman, all those, and he can have a spot in your offense and be very successful, but you still need bigger, taller, go across the middle, take all the hits and all that kind of fun stuff.
Which they got Mike Williams back.
Oh yeah, dude, Mike Williams is, you know, there's always 100 of them, and you and I will, in 20 years when we're at the nursing home together, talk about him. If Mike Williams could have ever stayed healthy, I think Mike Williams would have been a very great wide receiver. He just can't stay healthy. Yeah,
one of the most exciting offensive weapons in the last few years, and yeah, like you said, he just can't get healthy, but he has the size, he has the range. I wish he was like Mike Evans, just stays healthy, just reliable and available every game, every season, but he's just not. I hope Quentin Johnson turns into that guy, because he has a size. I mean, he's 6'4", almost 220.
It feels like he's about to find that. It feels like last year through week 7 on, I had him on fantasy. I actually picked him off on a waiver wire. And he had that stretch where it was like 3 catches, 40 yards, but a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And usually when young guys are starting to do that, they're going to start turning over. And if he could be the big guy, and then you got McConkey as the Chargers have everything right, but again, you look at their division, it's just going to be hard to be consistent. All right, my second game, it was my playoff or my Super Bowl pick last year that almost came to fruition. The Rams and the Ravens. I still want to remind everybody that the Rams legitimately gave Philly the toughest playoff game in the playoffs, in the snow, in Philly. And basically a Jordan Sweat, great play, or Josh Sweat, great play. Was it Sweat? I can't remember who it was now. Somebody like that sacked Stafford when there was a guy wide open in the end zone that would have won the game for him. I think this will be a great game. With the Rams and the Ravens. Again, the Rams are so better than what people think they are. They just got to stay healthy. And then you got the Bears and the Commanders, of course. Last year, famous Hail Mary game from the Bears. This is on Monday night, and Monday night has finally, because they went back to doing more games on ABC, they're finally getting better games. Again, what killed them?
There's also another reason.
What?
Well, two names: Joe Buck, Troy Aikman.
Well, yeah, but even before, you're right. No, 100%, you're right. But even before that, 4 years ago, when they finally said, "Okay, we'll start putting some of the games back on ABC," because what killed Monday night was ESPN's in 2011, 2012 being stubborn and saying, no, this is only going to be on our cable package. The NFL said, okay, if that's fine, then you get the last pick. And the way people don't understand how this works, networks, basically you have a voting system like, okay, Fox, we're going to flip a coin. You get the first pick of week 1. Then NBC gets the first pick of week 2. And then it goes on and on. Well, they just basically put Monday night on the back burner. And that's why you would always get Dallas and the Giants, because it was going to be a big ratings game. And it would be a fun game, but that's why you always got those. All right. And then let's see. I got the Eagles and Bills. I mean, I'm sorry. You got the Eagles Bills. My bad. Move back. Patriots and Titans. Okay. You said Fables were in game. No, but that's cute. Oh, man, people are going to hate me in our group. I think the Tennessee Titans are winning the AFC South this year.
Oh,
Cam Ward is their Jaden Daniels.
Oh man, now you're making me go into the Tennessee Titans depth chart, which I love. I love going to team depth charts because I like to see what people look at the star players like the quarterback, receiver, maybe edge rusher, and they think that's the team. But for me, I look at the offensive line. I look at some of the run stuff and interior defensive linemen. I look at some ball hawk secondary players or just guys that don't let anybody get behind them.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the Titans. I kind of like their offensive line.
Well,
I think it's at least solid. I like Lloyd Cushenberry, who they got from the Broncos a couple years ago. Peter Skoronski, who they drafted. J.C. Latham, who they drafted. And they got Kevin Zeitler at right guard. Dan Moore Jr. at left guard. This is solid. This is top 15, 16 offensive line.
Well, and I want to bring up what you said last year with their free agent spree. You said it best. You said they're signing guys that are been great too. Depth players. Tony Pollard, solid. If you don't want to give him 40 carries a game, if you give him 20, he can do great things. And you said all they're missing is a quarterback, and they got that quarterback this year. And I know Mario, our Titans fan, doesn't agree with us. I think Cam Ward is going to be special. I think Cam Ward is going to step in and be the next Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrows. We see this now every couple of years. The rookie quarterback who just he rocks and rolls, and I really think he is. And I think that roster, and they I know they traded what's his name to Dallas, and they got rid of a couple of them, but they kept most of those groups.
Kenneth Murray, the linebacker, yeah.
Tony Pollard had a really solid season with the Titans last year.
He did, and then Tajay Spears was a good number 2.
Exactly. And you can even make the case that they're 1A and 1B. And I'm telling you, with the AFC South, first off, I think every team could make the playoffs from that team. And I don't mean like all of them, but I'm saying anybody can win that division. I know Houston back-to-back, but let's be honest, Houston last year, it felt like they took a huge step back. And I don't think they're going to be bad, but I'm just saying, I think the AFC South will be the division that, well, just like last year, was really, really fun on who could and who could not make the playoffs.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, think about like the Jaguars. They're a team that's going to get a healthy Trevor Lawrence back, and I know people are talking about their trade to number 2 to get the Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter, but to me, the biggest addition to that team is Duval, Liam Cohen, their head coach. Offensive guru. I think he's going to revitalize Travis Etienne.
Well, I think the biggest move they made was not trading Travis Etienne. I think keeping him because I mean, people need to go look. He was actually really efficient last year. It's just things went south when Trevor Lawrence has been, and we can make the case that Trevor Lawrence has not been what we thought he would be. You and I were never. I never thought he was going to be bad, but I was like, I'm getting tired of this. Every new quarterback is now he's the best. He's the best prospect we've ever seen in 75,000 years of football, and he's turned out to just be a really solid, okay quarterback if you build around him. I think getting rid of Gabe Davis was good. I like Davis, but he's very inconsistent. I do think them not keeping Evan Ingram's going to hurt.
I think they got not Brenton. Is it Brendan Strange? The other tight end they have at Jacksonville, I think he's going to be pretty good for them. Let me go to their depth chart real quick while we're on the subject. Yeah, Brendan Strange. Sorry. I should have just went with my gut. I knew that. He actually had a pretty decent season after Evan Ingram
Yeah.
got hurt, and he was a guy they drafted out of Penn State a couple of years ago in the second round. He got 40 catches, 411 yards, 2 touchdowns. Most of it was after Evan Ingram got hurt, but you could see the potential there. So they're probably just banking on that another offseason, especially with a really good offensive minded head coach.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen there?
All right. And then I have the Lions and Eagles. That's an easy one. It's the game we haven't got. That was the game everybody thought we'd get for the NFC title game last year. I still contend that the Lions are closer to where Cincinnati was than they are to actually advancing, or to where Tennessee was with Mike Vrabel. I know I'm not trying to hate, but Dan Campbell and him kind of feel the same. Let's be fair. Well, now knowing, to be fair, the Lions underachieved last year for what they're supposed to be where they're at. I mean, hey, you made the playoffs. You hosted the playoff game in the second round. Good on you. How did that turn out? Oh, I mean, it's like Washington versus Barry Sanders again. It was ugly and it was long.
But I know, man. But they were 15-2. They made. I to me, I kind of disagree because you understand why that happened. They lost almost their entire starting defense. That without Aiden Hutchinson, they really didn't have the best pass rush. I know.
You're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. But let's remember 2 weeks before when they were all in Sam Darnold's face, nobody was talking about, all the injuries. In fact, it was, look how plucky this team is. They're doing all this with their third and fourth players. They're so awesome. Their drafting is so amazing. So then they get to Washington. And by the way, I still legitimately feel Washington's I'm not going to say a 1-year wonder. I think Jaden Daniels is going to just be amazing. I think Jaden Daniels is going to do everything that we think Joe Burrows, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, all those, Cooper Rush, all those great quarterbacks of our time. I think Jaden Daniels fits that, but I also think Washington has had a lot of 1-year wonders last year. And you and I have talked about that. You see that from time to time. They make the conference title game, and then they can never quite get back. But in saying that, the Lions spit the bit in that game. If we're going to call Cowboys choking against the Packers, then the Lions choked against Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you there, but I understand why it happened. It makes a lot of sense.
Oh no, you're not wrong on that. I know I'm speaking technically out of both sides of the mouth because I agree with what you're saying. But again, as I have always said, ever since you and I have known each other, and I've said it for longer, perception is reality. And the perception was the Lions, that great defense that was so hurt, but they were holding all these other teams to less points, got been in against Washington.
Yeah, but if you look back at it, you think about Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, teams that the Lions beat down that stretch, 49ers and Vikings respectively. Those are quarterbacks that don't get outside the pocket as much as someone like Jaden Daniels does.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe defensive coordinator Brian Flores was able defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, the other black guy, was able to design a scheme. Was able to design a scheme that was able to at least minimize the damage of a mobile quarterback, but he just didn't do it with Jaden Daniels. I would say Washington might not be that one-hit wonder, though, because if you look at it, if you think about it, very important, your star player is a quarterback. Yes. They got Laramie Tunsil. As long as they remain healthy, I like them drafting Josh Connerly to play the right tackle.
I agree.
Trading for Laramie Tunsil to play left tackle.
I like Austin Eckler.
Yeah, they have Austin Eckler still, and then Scary Terry, and then they traded for Deebo Samuel. So I think they got the makings of a pretty solid team. Now I will say their defense. I'm not sure how much of a hit they really took. We'll find out as the season goes on, but.
Well, and their defense legitimately, and this is nothing, not a knock, but their defense legitimately had like 7 guys have career years. The problem with that is we all act like that is going to carry over, but legitimately it usually doesn't. Like, Dante Fowler, who's now a Cowboy. I got to admit, I was shocked how quick he signed with Dallas. Like,
does that scare you a little bit?
No. Actually, no. I'm saying I'm really surprised. Like he was like, I mean, unless Washington told him, hey, and I don't really see Dan Quinn telling Dante Fowler because that was kind of his project. That's one of his favorite players. He's talked about that many times. I don't know why, but it just felt weird that was like he signed like 3 days after. I didn't even know he was a free agent. I knew he was on like some weird 1-year deal, but I thought it was one of those where they had an option type deal. So I was actually shocked when he just simply was available, but like he was gone in a heartbeat. And then you start looking at the whole roster of Washington defensively. That's a lot of smoke and mirrors last year. And also, well, now knowing to be fair, they weren't really that good on defense. They did exactly what Dan Quinn does. They get pressure, they get turnovers. But when you don't get pressures and you don't get turnovers, you get games like the Dallas-Washington game in Washington. And by the way, I know Washington fans now, love you, Mom. I know Washington fans now and be like, well, that game really didn't matter. At the time, it really did for Washington. They were still in the division race. They were still in the number 1 seed race. And Dallas went in there and tried to give them the game and still found a way to win. So I'm just saying, I just worry that Washington might be one of those, in and out teams. But anyway, my last one is technically number 6. I know, but it's Packers.
This is a good one.
Only if Aaron Rodgers is the Steeler quarterback. Only if. And at this point, I want Aaron Rodgers. This is going to sound weird.
I wish the game was in Green Bay.
Oh, I do too. I hate that it's in Dublin, and he'll probably have some weird reason why he can't go over there. But I really wish that Aaron Rodgers would hold the Steelers hostage till week 1 of the season, and then walk in and go, "Hey, what's the bang, boys? Let's play some football." That would be so. Will he have that? It is still weird that 2 Green Bay legends went to the Jets and basically flamed out. But will he have that third act that Brett Favre did? And I'll be fair, I think he could. There's no way the Steelers are going in with Mason Rudolph and whatever the dude is they took.
Oh, Will Howard from Ohio State.
Yeah, Will Howard is their quarterbacks. There is no, unless they are finally going, hey, you know what? We're just going to rebuild. But then what do you tell DK Metcalf? I mean, that's the guy you were like, hey, we're building around you. Oh, but we're going to not have a good quarterback for you.
You thought he was mad last season on the 10-win team. Think about what he's going to be like on a 5-12 team.
Yeah, that's true, dude. That is one thing. I didn't even think about that like that. Wow. Anyway, that's our top 5 non-Cowboy games that we both want to watch. Our top 5 non-Cowboy or non-NFC East games for the Cowboys. We gave you our Texans. I guess we just got to finish with.
It's time for the Suck What. What sucks? Well, this sucks. That sucks. Oh, the week.
Suck what?
All right, my suck what is I am so tired of this 18-game talk by the NFL. It makes no sense because what they're okay. So let me explain it like this. I don't like the idea unless they announce them before time when if they're going to do this whole and if you don't know they're talking about doing an 18 game but doing it more like players can only have to play 16 games, maybe 17. But what about the people that buy the tickets for those games that, it's the same thing with the NBA and load management. I'm fine with load management to an extreme, not too extreme, to a point, but I also think players have taken really big advantage of that. But also, like, you get people that drive in from 2 hours out of Dallas to go watch the Mavericks for the first time, and when Luka played, and Luka, wasn't playing that game because it's load management or going in the forward, Cooper flag. It's the same thing with the NFL. They want to bake in like 1 or 2 games you don't have to play. So basically, if there's an 18-game schedule, the starters will play 16 games. In theory, that sounds good, but what about the people that are going to those games? They're going to basically getting second stringers and third stringers playing. And I know they wouldn't do them all at once, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just doomed to fail if you add that load management clause into the deal. Now, you and I had an extensive talk about this, and I actually went further into it and looked at the 2025-2026 season to see how an 18-game schedule would work out, because I'm kind of wanting to make it to where the entire season is played in all 4 seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring. And kind of the way to do it is have the last week of summer be week 1 and the first week of spring be the Super Bowl week. And going based off of that, I kind of came up with a season where it was 2 bye weeks for every team. So a 20-week regular season.
Yeah.
And you still have the 4 rounds of playoffs, but you have 8 teams make it, no buys. And I think that's how I did. Yeah. 8 teams make it, no buys. And
You skipped a week in between the conference title game and the Super Bowl.
yeah. So
Which I really do like having that week off if they could keep that. I think it makes it better. I mean, we go back to, for us, reference 93 Cowboys. If Troy Aikman goes one more week in concussion protocol, I don't think that game's even close. But, anyway. Yeah, I'm a seasoned guy. I've always told you that. It's one of the reasons why I struggle with the USFL, the XFL, whatever that World Football League, that whatever they call it now. I struggle with it because I want my football between August and February. Yeah. I want my baseball, so I struggle with that, but I don't hate your idea as much. To me, the only way you do it right is if at least one of the buys is a season, like everybody takes off. Joe Burrows thinks that what they should do, and I don't have a problem with this, is do the whole Pro Bowl thing like the NBA does. Do the whole Pro Bowl thing like flag football.
Like every other sport, baseball and hockey. All the other sports do it in season.
Yeah, and it's weird because people say, well, what about injuries? Well, I mean, I know people say, well, they don't play defense but in basketball and hockey during the All-Star game, but I mean, they're not doing full games now in the NFL. They're doing flag football with some skill events. And let's also remember Pete Rose running into Ray Fosse. I know everybody wants to say, oh, that's such a great moment. Yeah, really? You hurt an All-Star catcher's shoulder in a game that didn't mean nothing? How is that, anyway, sorry. We'll have a big Pete Rose talk eventually, but no, I like the idea of it, at least one bye being the whole league takes off, and I think that would be actually fun as a fan. Think about it: the weekend after Thanksgiving, the whole league is gone, and we're all like, "What? This sucks! Oh my God, I'm watching Days of Our Lives and all my children now. I'm even watching basketball in November. That never happened. But how crazy that the next week when they finally come back, everybody would be to the moon with it."
Now, the Cowboys can't come up with the idea to have the week after Thanksgiving off because reasons.
Okay, so the NFL would give everybody else the week after, and then Dallas would have to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Throw in Thursday too as well.
Yeah, and also, so like the draft could be actually I said free agency would start mid-April. The draft could be mid-May. Camp can start mid-August, and the season for 2025 would go from September 21st to March 22nd. So instead of having 6 months of an off season, you have 5 months of an off season. So you eliminate the preseason. You just get away with it because that's just nonsense at this point. And I was thinking making week 1 the Hall of Fame game. So whatever the primetime game would actually be the Hall of Fame game.
I'm not real big on stretching every season, but I get your point on that. I do like I do actually like just making the Hall of Fame game. God, again, Super Bowl teams the year before, put them in the Hall of Fame game, week 1 in Canton. It would be a friggin' blast. That would be so fun. You could announce that, and don't do the whole thing where you announce it 3 months later. Announce the class on Monday of that week. The game's on Thursday. Tuesday and Wednesday, it's all the, oh, you're so awesome. This is how great you are. And then you do the game on Thursday. You have the halftime where they drive around in the car, they wave. Yeah. You could even, dude, that's a really good idea.
And the other 2 things I said was expand the rosters to 65 instead of 53, yep. But then also add 20 practice squad players instead of, I think you can do up to 15 right now. What else did I say? That was one.
No white receivers or cornerbacks.
Yeah, no white specialty players.
No Lad Mahonkeys.
Yeah, no Terry Bennett's.
Hey,
let's see. Oh, hey, I forgot you're still on the show.
Right. My shorts back on.
Yeah, 8 team makes the playoffs. No buys.
I really still want to keep at least the first seed as a bye. if we can. I
Then,
really,
then you would just keep it at 7 then.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. I still would. I still feel that there should be a true advantage for being the best team in your
Oh,
conference. For the
and
rest.
no bracket, because I want the number 1 seed to
You want
play.
reseeding.
Yeah, I want the seed, not by record, but by seed, because that's what basketball does, and that's kind of what grinded my gears this season. Because I think it was 6 seeded Minnesota played 7 seeded Golden State, while number 1 Oklahoma City played number 4 to Denver.
Yep.
They should have reseeded that, where Oklahoma City played Golden State, and then Denver played Minnesota. The results could have been the exact same, where we still have the same Western Conference Finals matchup, but I don't like that at all. I don't like, oh, we have a pretty little bracket we can look at now. Let's just watch this play out. No. I want this still gives importance to the number 1 team. They can
Yes.
play the lower seed team instead of playing whoever comes out of that bracket.
No, I totally agree with you. I want to keep divisions. I think they still need to mean something. And I want to give the number 1 seed still something to shoot for. But I agree with you. There should be reseeding. By the way, college football playoffs, that's basically what they're going to do starting this year. They're going to reseed. They're going to go top 4 buys. Then they're going to go reseed. And I like that. I think that's the fairest way to do it. You're
Well, because like this season, you had Arizona State and Boise State have buys, and a lot of people had issues with that. And I get that. They're not really the strongest team. They were top 20 teams, but I wouldn't say they were top 4 teams.
And for the record, I mean, that's going to be my new one now, to be fair. The NFL does have kind of a reseed in the second round, depending on who wins. But it's after that it goes away, which I guess technically it has to go away, though.
Yeah, because there's
I guess
2
that's
teams
not right.
left
I
at
guess
that
the
point.
NFL does technically reseed, don't they?
Yeah, and because there's not a bracket. It's just whoever the lower seed is plays the
Yeah.
higher seed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I never realized the NFL already reseeded. That's just weird.
Yeah, the problem with the Detroit had a problem with the fact that they
They finished
played.
second.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it was the 6 seed Washington, because they beat Tampa. They were a 6 seed technically, but they were 12-5.
Yeah, because
They
Mason,
would have rather played the Rams, who were 10-7, but they
Yeah.
won the So
but they wouldn't have beat the Rams that year. Again,
I think the Rams would have beat.
I think the Lions again. I'm telling you, I know I'm in the minority. I think Detroit has already peaked. I think Detroit is still going to be good, and they're going to still be a playoff team for the next few years, and they might even make an NFC title game. But I don't think they go past that. I just think that we're just it's weird. Some of these top teams, like we talk about Cincinnati, I could see Cincinnati everything going right, and they're 13-4, or being just like they were last year and they're 8-9 because they're so dependent on one side of the ball. And I think that's where the Lions are right now. And again, we don't even know what the Lions are going to do this year because the talent is there. Dan Campbell is there, but it's completely 2 new coordinators.
And that's the big question mark. Can those 2 coordinators show up and make this team really good? Can they form a pass rush on the defensive side?
I'm sorry. I will say this again. And if he goes on to be a great head coach, I salute him because he's from Texas. I've never understood the Glenn Love for Denver defensive coordinator. I legitimately feel like it's all because 2 years ago, that super secret survey they did, and he was voted as one of the favorite coaches for players. But when you actually look at the results on the field, Aaron Glenn is at best a mid to average defensive coordinator.
I would actually agree with it, only because the players like him, and when you had healthy talent around him, that defense did look good.
Okay.
When you had a healthy Aiden Hutchinson, when you had
By the way,
Anzalone
he's cleared to go. He's been cleared today to go full on. He'll be there week 1.
I guess you could blame the Lions losing in the divisional round to the Cowboys because Hutchinson got hurt in the Cowboy game.
Yeah. And it was late in the game too. Like the game had already been decided.
When he should have probably been on the sideline chilling, eating a hot dog, creating a viral moment.
There you go. Anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Oh man, let me look. Oh, hardest and toughest schedules, or easiest schedules and toughest schedules?
Oh yeah, let's pull that up. Hang on, let me pull that up. Sorry. I didn't actually see that on the thing. Just go ahead and go. Read them off.
So I'll start with the toughest schedule. I picked, and which is kind of a shocker to me, but the New York Giants, and kind of what we talked about earlier. It's because of how the NFL does scheduling. So each division, there's 8 divisions in the NFL, 4 in each conference, 2 conferences. Each conference plays the other conference once every 4 years, specific division. So in this year,
yeah,
the NFC East, where the Cowboys they play the AFC West, which is the Kansas City Chiefs, Vegas Raiders, Chargers, Broncos.
and then you play one team in the AFC rotating through the other divisions depending on where you finish. So again, like Dallas, the reason they get the Jets this year is they were the 3rd team in the AFC North or the East, and the Dallas Cowboys were the 3rd team in the NFC East. So they're playing each other. And this year the Giants, just unfortunately, everybody they get's like feels like they're on the uptick.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's because for the Giants, the Commanders, Eagles, and Cowboys are going to be tough matchups for them. So they play those teams twice or 6 times in total. So that's 6 out of 17. But then they also have to play the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, the 49ers, who I think will be way better than they were last season, as long as they remain healthy. Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, and the Vikings. It's just the NFC North is so tough as well, and the
Who's
NFC
the other AFC team
for the Giants.
Yeah.
Oh, let me look. I'll look for you. But yeah, so what also the schedule quirk is each division plays another conference division. The NFC East is going to play the NFC North.
Yeah, they do that they've been doing that for longer than what people realize. Let me see here. The Giants.
The Giants Patriots.
And I think that, again, the reason I picked Patriots, I didn't even get to go part 2 of that. We got on the Tennessee side. I think the Patriots take a big step this year. I think the Patriots are a playoff in the hunt playoff team in the
because it's so easy. And I feel bad for Jared Mayo, who was their one. He was the guy who replaced Bill Belichick. He got 1 year, and he didn't have what Mike Vrabel had. Mike Vrabel comes in here with $100 million in salary cap space.
Yep.
And the Patriots go on a spending spree. And, shame on Robert Kraft for not providing this for Jared Mayo last season, or just giving him a year too, just so he could at least have an attempt to have a formidable team. But the Patriots got so much better just in the offseason. Drake May should be very happy. They got a center and Garrett Bradbury. They got Morgan Moses at right tackle. Will Campbell,
the 3rd wide receiver.
Oh, yeah, Stephon Diggs.
So here's the thing about Mayo. I know it's real easy because of the history to point at the ethnicity of the coach and all that. But people behind the scenes were like, look, Jared Mayo's a great dude, but he just was not. Like, he didn't have whatever it means to be a head coach.
I mean, but like Bill Belichick did crap with this team 2 years ago. I don't know why you're expecting Jared Mayo to do better just because they drafted a quarterback who had they had the worst offensive line last season.
Yeah, Drake May, nobody talks about him.
He was set up to fail like Steve Wilkes was with the Cardinals in 2018.
That's a really good comparison.
That's why they make it a race thing. Because you kind of see this in the history of the NFL. These black coaches come in to crap situations and they only get 1 season. They need to get 2 to 3. Vrabel's going to get probably 3 to 4 at least just to build this.
Unless they tank. I think it's funny because it's weird to say this. I think Robert Kraft is now in Jerry Jones mode where he needs to prove that he can be an owner of a team that wins that's not Bill Belichick and not Tom Brady. And so I think you're 100% right on that. Mike Vrabel will get every chance as long as he's not, as long as he's improving and going forward, whether it be this year 6 wins and then next year 10 wins. But I do feel that I feel the AFC East is in this weird thing where and I know you were big on Miami last year. You had them going to the Super Bowl, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but there is an interesting experiment going on in Miami right now. Can Mike McDaniel change a culture that he created?
Man, that is the question going into this seat. That is fantastic. We need to. This needs to be real.
Yes.
Uh, because he did create this relaxed coaching, bro.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
your
hanging out.
friend.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
watching film together, but we're not like, we're laughing about it, maybe smoking some weed on the side. Maybe if your wife wants to come over and show me some titties, I'm good with that. And then I appreciate that he said that wasn't working anymore. But how do you regain that? That's a really hard thing to regain is authoritative type attitude. Like, hey, I know I've been nice before, but now I'm going to be asshole to you and you got to accept it. I want him to win. I've told you he's one of my favorite coaches, but last year I was even telling you before they went down the sink, I'm like, I think he's a little too relaxed. And I just want to see how he changes. I think Miami legitimately is the most fascinating team in 2025.
2 words to fix it: roster churn.
Bill Parcells. Oh,
uh, roster churn only because think about the New York Giants from the mid 2000s. Eli Manning couldn't spread his wings and fly and be a 2-time Super Bowl champion until they got rid of Tiki Barber, until they got rid of Jeremy Shockey. And
Jeremy
technically,
Shockey
Shockey
was
was
a
on
great
that 07 team, but he was on injured reserve.
yeah, and he was a great player, but he was an issue in the locker room. Not necessarily like Aaron Hernandez, but he was one of those that like I think he subverted Eli Manning a lot.
Hernandez.
Sorry, the whole Gronk talking about Aaron Hernandez got me thinking about that. Apparently, Gronk's fine with a dude masturbating in front of him. I know, Gronk, you're a little wild, but like seriously, in film study, that's the one time you're like, hey, dude, keep it in your pants. But anyway, but yeah, you're right. No, they had to build a culture just for Eli Manning, kind of like how Seattle had to protect Russell Wilson. Now, I think in 2 different ways. I don't think Eli Manning, and I'm not knocking Russell Wilson, but I think we've learned Russell Wilson, he's not a leader. I think Eli Manning was a solid leader who fell into 2 great years. I think Russell Wilson had a staff that understood who he was, and they protected him. Is it kind of feel like that's what the Dolphins have to do with Tua?
Yeah, I think so. Because you remember when Brian Flores was the head coach, him and Tua didn't get along because Brian Flores, he was pretty heavy handed with his coaching. I appreciate that just because I grew up in a certain era where I responded well to a tougher, more disciplinary coach. I think you'd appreciated it more too.
Oh,
But
yeah, that's our era.
Tua, I mean, like these players are just soft. I hate to say it, but like that's they need to be complimented. Tua said, "Oh yeah, I just love that coach." The Dolphins head coach, he's Mike McDaniel. He's very positive. He always says glowing things. But I'm like, no, bro, you need someone to tell you, hey, you're throwing it too soft. Hey, take a baseball slide. Protect yourself. We need you there. Availability is your greatest quality you can have for this team. We can't be having you making dumb decisions. If you're gonna make dumb decisions, wear the guardian cap so you can protect your head.
Yep.
Right, this is stuff that he needs to start doing. That transcends him from being just a really good offensive coordinator with offensive mind, from the Shanahan system to being an excellent head coach. He needs to just put his dick on the table and tell him how it is. Shape up or ship out.
Oh, I never. I see what you're saying. All right, let's go to easiest schedules. The Niners. I don't understand why people think the Niners have an easy schedule because I legitimately think. Again, I don't think there's. I think the AFC South and the NFC South they're going to be very competitive. I think the NFC East. It depends on what Washington and Dallas and the Giants. I think Philadelphia is going to be perfectly fine. But every other division, to me, I think the NFC West is going to be really tough. You got the Rams, who I think is a prohibitive favorite. You got the Cardinals, who I think are way closer to the Niners than they have been in the last few years. I think you and I disagree on San Francisco. I think San Francisco is about to go into a full. We tried it with this group. Now we got to move on. And I know they just signed Fred Warner to a big deal, but it's also a deal. Basically, it's a 6-year deal that can be a 3-year deal that actually can be a 1-year deal with how they can do the cuts and everything. I think the Niners are taking a step back.
And I think the opposite. I think it depends on how long Christian McCaffrey is going to play, I guess. But
4 games.
for the rest of his career,
Every
you're
running
like,
back
you're
in
like,
San
I said
Francisco
what I
gets
said.
hurt.
4 games.
Yeah, every running back in San Francisco now gets hurt in 4 games. It's just how this works.
Getting Robert Saleh was a big thing for me,
I
and
agree.
I really like him as a defensive coordinator. I think he can take all the talent they got because I think they drafted defense the first 5 or 6 rounds.
Yep.
So I think he can take that and make them into a pretty solid defense again. And then just whatever Kyle Shanahan can do on the offensive side, really. I mean, he's an offensive guru. I think if they let Saleh be the defensive head coach, Kyle Shanahan be the offensive head coach, I think they'll be in good shape. Along with their schedule, I know the NFC West is going to be tough. If they can split the NFC West, I think that's a win for them.
Yeah.
And then playing, the Giants, the Bears. We don't know how good the Bears are really going to be. But I think they'll be good. I think them and the 49ers might be pretty close, like 10-7, 11-6 possibly.
Yeah.
But playing the NFC South, I think they could go 3-1 there. AFC South, I think they could also go 3-1 at worst, 2-2. So you add all that stuff together, that's just the formation of a winning team. And as long as Pearsall doesn't get shot again, I think he'll have some players to throw to. Jawan Jennings proved he can be a wide receiver.
Jawan Jennings came on strong last year.
Yeah, I mean, I got him in one of my fantasy football leagues, and he did really well for me. They still have George Kittle, who's 31 now, 32.
He just signed a new deal too.
He just signed a new deal. They still have Trent Williams, who I don't care how old he is still dominant.
He's going to be Tyron Smith. He's going to be dominant until he's not.
It'll just be a big fall off.
Yeah, it's a fall off. There's not going to be a gradual. It's going to be a fall off. You have honorable mention again, the Patriots. That's why again I think the Patriots this year will be one of the upstart teams. They play the Giants, the NFC South, the AFC South, the 2 divisions. I think in both conferences. I don't want to say they're weaker, but you feel like the Broncos have now won. The Buccaneers have now won 4 division titles in a row. And they've still not been a really good team. They're not bad. They're fun. Hey, they pull an upset off in the playoffs here and there. They beat Philadelphia a couple of years ago it was a home game. Again, that goes back to the seeding thing. But, it's not like the Buccaneers are a great team. And so, yeah, I can see the Niners with the same idea. It's funny, though, that we give honorable mention to the 2 teams that play both the NFC South and the AFC South.
And that's a big factor for me when I consider toughest. And there's an asterisk because you might have the worst division in 2024, but it might be one of the best divisions in 2025.
It still feels like both Souths are still going to be really competitive inside their games, really fun. But I don't think they're going to. In fact, the team that wins that division, it might not even be who they beat in the division. It's if they can beat the teams outside the division.
Exactly.
It's gonna be a fun, man. I am so glad. I was just talking to high school host Grant Goodwin. It's May, dude. We're basically in football mode going for the rest of the year, and I love that.
Oh, I love it too, man. At some point, we're gonna start talking about fantasy football and OutDrank the Coverage leagues. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be good, and we gotta come in. I gotta come into studio at some point in the next month or 2. We have some specials we need to.
Well, we're gonna do okay. So the next one we're gonna do is the 1958 season. We're doing our year, and I promise you, there's going to come out. They're probably going to come all at once because this has been a new thing we're trying.
There's a lot of editing, so it's going to take a while. Yeah,
and I've got to do it behind other things. But I think I want to try the 1958 season like this and just see how it works. We've never done a true look back. We did do a look back at the strike, MLB strike in '94 when we had Ryan and you on for Texas 2 Scene. By the way, Ryan's about to start doing some more stuff for us.
Again. Oh man, I can't wait. He got Jim Sundberg to be on this show. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a great interview. But I think the next one we're going to do is going to be like this, because I think I'm excited. I've been kind of early researching the 58, but it's not one of the. This is a season that you and I only know by, of course, the history books. You don't have no connection to it. There's nothing that makes me like. I really, but I do love that because it allows us to kind of look at stuff we've never truly looked at before, other than NFL films, the 58 Colts, 58 Giants, things like that.
Yeah, this is the reason why we chose this is because, and we'll talk more about it when we actually do the show, but that kind of swayed public opinion to where NFL might actually be the number one sport in America. Not that particular time, but people started getting more interest, especially with the advent of TV. TV was a new concept in 58. It was 7 or 9, 10 years old at this point. So it's still a novelty. Uh, but watching that game, that championship game going into overtime, that can do it. And you have a star player like Johnny Unitas, a giant team with one of the greatest offensive minds and one of the greatest defensive minds as assistants, and Vince Lombardi and Tom Landry, respectively. One of the great giant, or that giant team in the 50s was awesome. They didn't win enough championships, but they were always in title contention. So that's kind of the reason why we're going to look into it. There's probably other good stories we'll talk about, but we just, Jim Brown played there in this time too. So there's a lot of good players during this time as well.
No, I totally agree. I'm actually looking forward to it. We'll have information on that as we go, but want to remind everybody you can email the show, our new email, odtcnetwork@gmail.com. Questions, thoughts, comments, tips, whatever you want to do. You want to gripe about Noe, then I understand. But until next time, he's intern Noe, the commissioner. I'm Terry, the host, and this has been a special Thursday night happy hour right here on L Form